Eenie Meanie review. Middling comedy thriller has its moments. Ready or Not's Samara Weaving is a getaway driver tasked with saving her dirtbag ex in a slick yet inconsequential caper. Back in the 2000s or early 2010s, a film like Eenie Meanie would have been a late summer theatrical play, a mid-budget star vehicle with enough genre elements to hopefully lure back the blockbuster crowd. There are car chases and shootouts with absurdly attractive people in the middle of them and recognizable that guy from Faces Surrounding. But even back then it would have been a gamble, without an A-lister attached, the film probably going the way of the many non-fast and furious car flops like Driven, Speed Racer, Drive Angry, and Need for Speed. Now, it's a much more obvious and far safer, fit for streaming, with Disney wisely nudging this one to a Hulu Disney Plus premiere. Eenie Meanie still has the feel of something that was once on a bigger screen, though, with a reported $50 million budget edging it above many of the season's multiplex offerings. Exactly how and why this particular package was deemed worthy of such an unusual spend in this climate is a bit of a head-scratcher, as the film is a mildly diverting yet strangely dated caper, a watered-down Tarantino ripoff without a soul of its own. It's the feature debut of writer-director Sean Simmons, who created the one-and-done action series Wayne and co-created John Wick's spin-off The Continental, both shows not really leaving that much of an impression. But the former was exec-produced by Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, the duo who co-wrote the Deadpool series, and they have also shepherded this one, with the franchise's almost $3 billion gross granting them a certain amount of special treatment at Disney. The smug irreverence of those films is mercifully kept in check here, but there's a similar balance of action and comedy that's also come to typify their work elsewhere. The pair have also written the execrable streaming duds Six Underground and Ghosted. Simmons' script is marginally better than their worst, and he does have an uncanny ability to construct genuine surprises, especially in the first act, but his sharp left turns soon fade and the journey ahead becomes a little too obvious. The star in the vehicle is Samara Weaving, the Australian home and away actor turned model turned genre mainstay best known for films like Ready or Not, The Babysitter, and Scream 6. She plays Edie, an unlikely getaway driver, trained from a young age, nicknamed Eenie Meanie, who has turned her back on a life of crime, choosing the straight and narrow. But she's dragged back in by her troublesome ex-boyfriend, whose latest mistake reunites her with former boss and a far-fetched heist with life-or-death consequences. It's the old one-last-job tale, filled with an inevitable array of overly quirky characters and dialogue that confuses swearing with actual jokes. Formative shared history with Glusman's handsome, yet consistently awful ex never quite explains why someone as smart and savvy as Edie Eenie would continue to risk everything for him. Glusman plays dumb well, although Weaving, struggling with an awkward Midwestern accent, is a little indistinctive as a lead despite the flashy chaos that engulfs her. Their low-investment back-and-forth relationship can't propel us through the more serious stretches, the film more effective when nothing or no one really matters. When that is the case, when we're fixed behind the wheel with $50 million to spend, the film zips into action and Simmons is a dab hand at choreographing an involving and kinetic car chase. He also throws in another left turn in the finale, one that's initially daring yet ultimately unsatisfying as he doesn't quite know where to take us next, leaving us with an endnote of unearned sentimentality. It's a bumpy road for Eenie and an even bumpier one for us. Eenie Meanie. Hulu exclusive Eenie Meanie boasts a talented ensemble in a film that has no idea what to do with their talents. Clearly made by a filmmaker who loves Quentin Tarantino and Edgar Wright, this thriller suffers from both a lack of its own identity and almost zero organic tension. It's one of those films in which everyone sounds like a screenwriter's mouthpiece, which you can pull off if you're Tarantino and a select few other writers in film history, but generally deflates a project of thrills, stakes, and characters to care about. The film finally arrives at some decent car chase material in the final act and one memorable performance that's all too brief, but, man, it's a long drive to get there. Samara Weaving, who has too often been the best thing about bad movies but can't hide her boredom in this one, plays the title character, whose actual name is Edie Meanie, but she was given the titular nickname by a gangster named Nico. Edie is one of those stock characters in a thriller, the petty criminal forced to do one last job because the person she loves is an idiot. In this case, John isn't initially the person she loves, as she hasn't seen him in weeks. When the film opens, she goes to his apartment to tell him she has just learned she's about to complete the first trimester with his child. She finds him in the middle of a deadly predicament at the end of a gun, choosing, after initially walking away, to save the obvious and ne'er-do-well. Bad move. Tying herself to John's dilemma brings her back into the world of Nico, who forces the couple to participate in a heist, $3 million from a nearby casino. John is introduced naked, at gunpoint, and then we discover that he's keeping a card counter in a box. And John is the love interest. Why shouldn't we root for Edie to run the other way again? Writer-director Sean Simmons never quite answers this question, pushing his leads together despite their lack of chemistry or audience interest in seeing them ride off into the sunset together. It's a factor of the biggest problem with Eenie Meanie, which is that none of these people are interesting or fun enough to warrant spending 94 minutes with them. Weaving's natural charisma can only carry a movie so far, but it's almost a feat to make generally engaging performers like Marshawn Lynch, Chris Bauer, Mike O'Malley, and Dean Winters this boring. Only Steve Zahn, who appears briefly in the prologue and returns about an hour in as Edie's crappy dad, feels like he's done any work in the backstory department, imbuing his brief screen time with actual presence. Everything else has the nutritional value of a fast food cheeseburger, but it's not even as tasty. Ultimately, Eenie Meanie is a collection of cliches in search of an actual movie. Too often, Sean Simmons mistakes profanity for toughness and violent outbursts for plot, trapping us with what is mostly a bunch of loathsome idiots for 94 minutes without the craft or a Tarantino or the visual acumen of a Wright to make it worth the captivity.